All right, so everyone, good afternoon once again. So before we start, I like us also know to actually know what we'll be doing. So we'll be going through a review of the bonus assignment for activity 1. So I don't know if you all can hear me. If you can hear me, just indicate by raising up your hand. Okay, so we're good to go. So I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. All right. So this is let's see. This is where we'll be. I am about to create a project. So let's see. This is what we'll be doing. So this is the project that was given to Active wants to do. So I'll be starting this project from scratch. So first things first, I'll be creating a folder for this project. So this is new folder, and I'll call this KodeCamp. And after creating this folder called KodeCamp, this is where it is. I'll open it with VS Code. So open and okay. So some people are raising their hands. Don't know why that is. Okay, so I'll get to you guys in a minute. So this is my folder. But before I continue, I just want to show you guys one very important thing, and that's creating a folder structure. You guys need to actually.
Tell this what.
Okay. Please, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can, but we cannot
All
see
right.
the share.
Sorry, we can't see your VS Code window. So are we supposed to see that or just the Figma screen?
Okay, you're supposed to see the VS Code window. So let me get that for you. Okay, guys, give me a minute to walk around that. Okay, so you guys can see my screen now, right? All right, good. So this is my VS Code project. Okay. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. I'm trying to get my screen to show. So you guys can see this, right? So I was trying to talk about folder structures, trying to create a very good folder structure. So the thing about this is you'll notice that sometimes while you guys are pushing to Git, because you haven't created the right folder structure and your naming convention is not right, it is always very difficult to actually show. It's always very difficult for Git to actually host your project on Git pages and for it to show very well. Okay, so the first things first, I'm actually going to show how you create a very good folder structure. And the first way to do that, this is my parent folder. So the first thing I will be doing is creating a new folder and I'll call that CSS. And after creating that, I will create another folder and I will call that images. Okay. So after creating that, I think basically this is all you need. So since we haven't started JavaScript, I would have created a JavaScript folder, but since we haven't started JavaScript, so I'm going to skip that for now. So back
I feel
in,
sleepy now. I feel less sleepy again. It's like my brain is not expanding.
okay, so back in my VS Code, I'm going to create a file. I'm going to call that file index.html. And I am going to create my boilerplate code. So, and I'll call this document KodeCamp revision. Okay. Now inside my CSS folder, I am going to create a file. I'll do that from VS Code. So I'll call this style.css and I save. So as you can see, this is how I create my folder structure. So I don't know, does anyone have any questions so far as to what I have done so far? So okay.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay, sorry. As regards the file you created inside the CodeCamp folder,
Yes.
is it a must that it should be index.html, or we can just use another?
Okay. Because you'll be pushing to Git and you'll be hosting on Git pages, you definitely need to create an index.html file. Now, the reason why you're creating an index.html file is because if you don't do that, Git pages isn't going to be able to show your work. I think that's the reason why most of you have been getting that 404 error page that your project can't be seen. So you definitely have to create an index.html page just because of the reason of pushing to Git and hosting on Git pages. But it's not really necessary to always call it index.html. You call it whatever it is you want to call it. But for Git pages, since Git pages is actually replicating an actual live server, which is going to be hosted online, you definitely need an index.html page. So I don't know if you get that. Okay, so this is a file we'll be working with. Okay, Justice, I see your hand raised. Ask your question.
Yes, please, I want to find out from the file and the folder you created from the VS Code.
Yes.
Does it mean that the CSS will be on a different folder while the index.html will be on different folder? But I think I've been mixing my own up, getting them together.
Yes, actually, they have to be in different folders. from what I have done here, the CSS file has to be in a separate CSS folder. That's how your folder is actually supposed to be structured. There's supposed to be orderliness in your folder, because if you have so many files in your parent folder, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very messy. So using the folder structure is supposed to help organize your files and your folders together. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes,
So
it did, yes.
all right. So this is what we'll be talking. This is what we'll be building. But before we start, let me actually get this image into my folder which I'll be working with. So first thing I do is I click on this image, and from Figma, I think I should actually see a place to export this image. Okay, so I click here. All right, so I export. Okay, so I export, and it's actually downloaded. So save it, and okay, and from my browser I could open containing folder, and this is it. And I copy this, and I come to my images folder and I paste this. So that's the image. Now, okay, so we can actually start. I think that's the only image we'll be needing. So I think the first thing I'm actually going to do is create the main tag. And after creating the main tag, from what we have here, let me zoom in a little. So you see that there is a first, this is what we have. There is a heading, and I will create the heading. I'll be using a H1. And after creating that, I will say welcome. And after creating that, let me save, and let's see. Let me open this with live server. Okay, so this is live server. So first things first, I will do a browser reset, and this is what I will do for all tags. This is actually a CSS selector. It's supposed to be a general CSS selector, which is what it is, and I'll use this, and before and after. Sorry. Yes, I'll be setting the margin. So margin 0 and padding 0 and box sizing. Change it to border box, and I'm going to save. Now, at this point, if you don't understand what I just did, just hold on, let me explain. So in HTML, we have two kinds of elements. We have block elements and we have inline elements. Now, your browser has this thing where it does, for all block elements, it tries to give them a default margin and padding. But with this, I think all we did here was to set everything. So for all elements, can you hear me now? All right, so the browser does this thing of adding margin and padding to elements by default, but because we don't need that, we actually have to reset that so that we put the default margin and padding in which we actually want. Justice, I was seeing your hand up. Do you have a question? Okay, Justice, go ahead.
No.
Okay. All right. So we continue. So from the style we're actually seeing here, we found that this welcome. Okay, Chuku got in. What's your question? Okay, so since there's no question, okay. All right, so
Sir, please, are we allowed to ask questions as the class goes on?
drop your questions in the chat. Yeah, so that way I can give a pause and then attend to your questions one after the other. All right, so moving on. So we found that this, from the Figma file in which we are using, this is actually supposed to be in the center, the welcome, and we'll change the font. So first things we're actually going to do is actually change the font to a better font. So I could say for the body, I could change the font and give it a font family of I could use Sigo UI sans serif, and I could give the default font size to be 14 pixels. Okay, so save that and look at what we have. Okay, now the next thing you actually have to do is style this H1 which we just created. So you could say H1, and first thing you have to do is say text align, put it to the center, and so for the sake of using Figma, since we always use Figma for almost all the assignments, there is this thing Figma actually helps us to do, which is the fact that it gives us not just the text, but it also helps us with CSS sometimes of whatever it is we have to style. So sorry, let me reduce this a little so you could see. All right. So could actually set the background color to white. After that, let's see what we have. Okay. I think I forgot to do something here. I didn't link my CSS. So I create the link tag, and here I first of all call my CSS file, and inside my CSS file I have my style.css which I have created. So once I save it, I think everything we've done so far is now supposed to show. Now this is it. We now have welcome here, and you see that the font has now been applied. So if you go back to our style.css, we could actually set the font size and I could give it a font size of say 20 pixels. Okay, that's way too small. So actually, do a demo and increase it from here. Okay, let's give it a font size of 40 pixels. So 40 pixels, that's good. Now, after that, the next thing according to the design that we were given is that we were given two divs. Sorry, it is this next section here, and from this section we see that there's an image, and on the left and on the right there's a place for text. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's give this a section. We'll call this section basically anything. So let's just say I'll give it a section. I'll call it banner. And inside the banner, we definitely have two divs. So the first div I could call image section, and the second div I could call text section. Oh, sorry, supposed to be div. All right, so inside the image section, let's see what we have. Inside the image section, there should be an image. Yep, which is this image. And I put the image here. And I'll give it a class. I'll call this image section image. So don't mind my naming convention. You could call it whatever it is you want. And I'll go to the images. I'll go to the images folder. I said images folder. I grab that image, and for the sake of semantics, okay, so sorry about that. For the sake of semantics, I'm actually going to give, I'll describe the image, which is supposed to be man typing with a laptop. Okay, so I save, and for the text section, what do we have? I think text section, we have another heading, and another heading, we have a kind of like a border. So let's do that. So under the heading, we have, let's give this a H3. Under the H3, the text there says who we are. So I could just say who we are. And underneath that, I think we have a paragraph. two paragraphs actually. So I could just call this P and add some lorem inside, dummy text, and just copy this paragraph and paste it again. And I think that's all we have here. Okay, so I think that's that for the HTML of this particular section. So I save, and the next thing I'm supposed to do is style that. So to start the styling, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we give this image give the image container a height. So to give the image container a height, so I am going to come here and say this image section. Okay, before I do that, let's check our HTML and see what we've done so far, so I don't go in a hurry. So from what we can see, we see that the image is actually overlapping, and sorry, it's on top of the text, but that's not what we want. From what we see here, we need the image and the text to be side by side. So to achieve that, first thing I do is that I go to this section that has the class of banner. I come to CSS and I style it first. So banner, I change the display. So I say display and I give the display of flex. So as I give the display of flex, I also come to check. Now we see that there is actually a little bit of, now the images, sorry, did I say image? The image and the text are now actually side by side. But if we actually look at what we're giving here, we'll actually see that there's a little bit of, a padding or so, like there's the space actually between the image and the text. So let's actually do that. And for this, to do this, I'll give a padding just to make sure there's space in between, to make it look nice a little bit. I could give it a padding of say 30 pixels, which is supposed to be around them. And I save and I say, yep, that's a little bit of space, which is good. Now, I justify content and I'll say space between, so that there's a little space between them. Okay. And also give a flex direction. Flex direction, I think I'll give it true. Okay, so all right, so the next thing I think is to style the image section. Now styling the image section, and I could give it a height. Let's see from the Figma file what's the height of this image. Okay, it's a 422 by 496. So we could say, give it a height of 500 pixels approximately, and overflow. Now the overflow we're giving here is just in case the image is too big and it's actually trying to come out of this image section container. We could say overflow hidden so that it hides the other sections are actually coming out. So after overflow hidden, I think there's nothing more for us to do here. We could actually just save and style the image now. So we could say image section and get the class for the image tag, which is supposed to be image section image. So copy this and we could say width, give a width of 100%. Now we are giving this width of 100% because we want the image to be able to fit into this container so it doesn't actually spoil the flow of the website, so the image doesn't get too big or too small, but just fits in perfectly. So saving, let's go see what we have. All right, so the image is not too big, it's not too small. It's actually taking the full width of this 500 pixels. And I think the next thing we have to do here is style this text. So for the text section, go to the text section. I'm targeting the H3, and the first thing I want to do, let's go back and check the Figma file. I want to align it to the center, so I'll say text align center, and after that, now we see that there is actually a line under it which is supposed to be like an underline. Now, and this is also section at the center. Now there are lots of ways to actually do this, but I'll be using a different method entirely. And if you do not understand any way you get lost, just ask your question. So I'd say position, relative, and let me copy this. Okay, and before, and so I'll say contents and position, absolute, and top. I'll give top 100%, and I'll give left 50%. And I'll look for translates X. I'll give it minus 50%. Okay, then I'll also give this a height of this is a height of 2 pixels, and I'll give this a width of say 50 pixels, and I'll give this a background color that looks like yellow, so I'll call this yellow. Now let's see what we have. Okay, All right, so this is what we have here. Let's try to make it a little bit better. Looking at the Figma file, there's some space between this guy and this guy, so let's do that. So from the H3, I think we have to give it a font size. Let's give it a font size of let's say 20 pixels. Let's check it out and see what it looks like. Okay, it's almost there, or it's not totally. So let's say 40 pixels. Okay, that's a bit overboard. Let's use 30. All right, and looking at this is you see that the text here, they are in camel case. So we could do that from our CSS, and we could say text transform, change it to capitalize. Yeah, so save, and yeah, we have that. Well, I think the okay, okay. I hope you guys can see my screen very well. All right. Okay, so from our Figma file, you guys can hear me, right? Okay, so I think I'm continuing. Okay, so I'll say font weight. I think the font weight is a little bit light. So go lighter. Let's see, and let's see. We are almost getting it to what we have. Let me increase. So I come down here and increase the width a little bit. So I could give this 70 pixels, and we could give this a margin top of say 10 pixels. And oh, sorry, that's too much. 10 pixels is actually too much. So from here, I could say margin bottom, say 20 pixels. All right, so I think we are good like this. Okay, so at this point, I will take 2 questions. If you have just 2 questions, and then I continue. So if you have questions, just ask. Okay.
Okay, so Justice, go ahead with your question. Yeah, Justice, go ahead.
All right, sir. From the beginning of the CSS, there are some things he did at the top, which I was not so clear on this from the very first beginning. And then right there inside the index.html, when you come to the image section, on the same line, write image section, then another image section on the same line. I don't know.
Okay, so at first, let me address your question. The first question you asked is the first thing I did in my CSS, which is this. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
This is what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now I said this is a browser reset, Now, doing this means that I am actually trying to overwrite what the browser knows. So,
Your screen is frozen.
okay, can you see my screen very well?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes,
Very
we can.
Okay, now, so what I meant was this, that from when I did this, I said there are two kinds of tags. There is inline tags. There are block level tags or block level elements, and there are inline tags or inline level elements. Now, block level elements actually span the full width of your browser, and they come with a default margin and padding set to them. So sometimes these margins and paddings could actually, disrupt the flow of your web page. So the best thing to actually do is to actually reset these things so you get to define the margin and the padding yourself. So that is the reason why I did what I did here. This is a browser reset I'm actually doing. So this is what it means. Okay, so this is what it means. This is what I did here. This is what this place means. This is a browser reset. Now, coming to your second question, which is about the image section. Now, this image section, this first div, is actually a class, which is a container containing this image. Now, I said I gave this image itself a class of image section image here. So it's not like I am repeating the class. This is actually a different class on its own, which I am going to use to style this image differently. So Justice, I don't know if this has answered your question.
Yes, it did.
All right, so I am seeing a question on the comment
Yeah.
section. I'm seeing a question in the comment section, which is asking me how I was able to get this small yellow line here. I think, yes. So how I got this line was, this is what I did. So from the HTML, I gave this a H3. I said, this is who we are. Now, from my CSS, this is what I did. I used a pseudo selector. This a before pseudo selector. This is it here. Now, this before pseudo selector can actually be used to add additional styling to any HTML element at all. So that yellow line you're seeing there is actually coming from this heading. It's coming from this particular heading, but because I am using the pseudo selector, it's almost like it is on its own. But the way I did it was this. I don't know if you can see my screen. This is how I did it. So the first thing I said was, using this pseudo selector, this before pseudo selector, I gave a content. Since I was not going to write anything here, so I left the content blank. If I do type something inside here, it's actually going to appear there. If I type this and save, you see the text there, right? So that's what it's for, but I don't need any text inside, so I'll take it off. Now, what this pseudo selector actually helps to do is whenever you have an extra styling, sorry, please turn off your mic. Whenever you have an extra styling which you want to do to a particular element, you could use this pseudo selector to actually do it. So the way this pseudo selector works is that this pseudo selector is always relative to the parent element of which you want to use it on. So let's say, for example, this H3 I use here, which is who we are. This pseudo selector here, this line is relative to this who we are. So what do I mean by relative? What I mean is this. Before I do it, I say position relative on this H3 so that I can come down here and say position absolute. That way, I have made it relative to the H3 elements. Now, doing it this way, that's the first thing I do. That way, it doesn't move out of. That way, it doesn't move out of the width of this particular H3 element. That way, it's always positioned within the second or
Come
within the
now.
perimeter of this H3 element. Sorry, please turn off your mic. Now, after doing that, I set the top to 100%. Now, the top is the positioning where it is actually going to be positioned. If I set the top sorry about that. If I set the top to 0 and save and check, you find that it has moved to the top of the element. So that's what this top is actually for. It's used for moving this pseudo element selector around. So I set it to 100% because I needed it to be at the bottom of that element. And I set the left. Now you can already guess what this left does. The top is used for moving it vertically, and the left is used for moving it horizontally. So I set the left to 50%, so it should take like half. But to center it very well, to make sure it stays at the center, I actually had to use this transform and use this translate x minus 50. So doing this actually makes it stay at the center of the page, the center of the element. So if I were to remove this translate x 50 and save this and take a look, I'd see that this goes down to 50%, but then you see that it's not at the center anymore. So using this translate x minus 50% is what helps it stay at the center of the text. So that's more like it's more like saying I use a flex and say justify content center. So no matter how long this text is, it always stays at the center. I could show you a demo. I could just duplicate this and say who we are and copy again and again and again. And if I save and you check, you see that it always stays at the center no matter how long the text is. So that's what that particular one is for. Now, I had to give it a height so we could actually see it, and I gave it a width of 70 pixels, which is actually from here to here. And then I gave it a background color of yellow and a margin top of 10 pixels so that there's going to be a little space between who we are and this yellow line. So I don't know if that has answered your question, but for now, I'll just continue. So if you have any more questions, just write them in the comment section below, and when I'm done, I'll still come back to you, okay? So moving on, the next thing I'm actually going to style is the paragraph. If you go to our Figma file, we'll find that the paragraph, you see from the paragraph that the text in the paragraph is actually, how do I say this? The text in the paragraph is a little bit bigger and the space between each paragraph. So I will do that now. So first things first, I'll get this text section. Get the text section. So I'll say text section, and I am going to get the p tag there, and I'm going to give it a font size. I'll give it a font size of 18 pixels. I save and I preview and see. Okay, that's good. And we can actually see that the text and the image, they are actually lapping side by side. So we could actually do that. We could give the paragraph a margin margin. I could give the margin of say 15 pixels and 20 pixels. So 15 pixels and 20 pixels. Let's save and see what that looks like. Now, 15 pixels is actually from left to right. We could actually inspect and see that. Let me show you what it does. So if we look here, you see that 15 pixels is actually from top to bottom, and from right to left, you have 20 pixels. But from what we're seeing, compared to what we have here, it is not really enough. So I will make, let's say, from this image to this text, what we have is 37 pixels of space. So, and from here to here, we have 18. So I will actually do that. So I think this is supposed to be okay. So what we have here is actually 18 pixels, and what we have here is 37. So I save that and I check it out and preview. All right, so that's enough space. Okay, and then I think I have to increase this font. Let's see, I make it like 22 pixels. All right, so it's looking a lot more like what we have here. But let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, okay. So let's give this a width. Width of 50%. And the text section has a width of 50%. Okay, sorry about this. It's an oversight. I was supposed to give this, yes, I'm supposed to give this with 50%, so they are equal, so the text section doesn't take up all the space. So in that case, if we look at what we're seeing here, you see that there's too much space here. So let's see, let me inspect element and see what's causing this space. Okay, let's go back here and we okay, so I think I removed this class, save this, and if I go back, all right, so I think we are good. Yeah, so this is already beginning to take shape. It's already looking more like this. And I think after this section, the next section we have is the form section. So so at this point, I will take one more question. I'll take one more question. So if you have any questions, raise your hand and ask your question. I'll take one more question before I move over to the form section. Okay, so Chuku Godson.
Sir, please, I wanted to beg if you could share the code for the CSS like from the beginning so that I could screenshot, if possible.
Okay. Yes, I will do that. All right. So, okay. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to push this code to GitHub, and I'm going to leave a link for this repo in the stage 1 channel so that you guys could actually go and see this code. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that will be okay.
All right then, so let's continue. All right, so moving on, the next section we have is actually the form section. And forms, this is just basically the last page. So let's try and make the HTML of this form section. So let's start. So next section, I'll call this form section. So I'll say section, and I'll call this form section. And now inside this form section, I'm going to have I'll create a div which I'm going to call form container. Now this div which I'm calling form container is actually
Sorry, your screen is frozen.
okay. Sorry. Can you see my screen now? All right. Sorry about that. So I'll call this section form container, and inside this form container, this is where I'm going to have the form. So I can call this form. And just because I want to use classes all throughout, so I want to use a class to style this, I'm going to say .form. Okay, so I don't need the action attribute, so I'm not going to use this. Okay, so inside this, let's see what we have in the form. I think we have a label and an input, label inputs, and label and text area before the button. So I'll make a div which I want to use in putting everything inside. So I'll make a div and I will call this div input container, so that I make everything orderly. So inside input container, I'm going to have a label, and inside the label, I'll come back here first. This is going to be first name, so this is going to be for first name. So I'll call this first name, and I'll call this first name, and I'm going to make an input. And the input is input of a type of text. So this is going to be first name and ID of first name. Okay. And looking at this, there's no placeholder, so I am just going to duplicate this. So and this is going to be last name. last name, and the next is going to be your message. So, and this is not going to be, this is going to be text area. So take this off and put text area, and this is going to be for message. So call this message. All right, and I call this message. Now this is going to be your message. Your message. Okay. So and I think the last one is going to be for the button. Okay. Yep, a button, and I'll take this off, and I'll call this this is going to be a button, and it's going to be of a type of submit.
So your screen is frozen again. Oh.
Oh, sorry. Let's. I think it's showing now, right?
Yes, it is.
So this is going to be a type of submit. So I'll say submit. All right. So I think that's that. So if I save this, I think I'll change this div from inputs container to button container. So it's going to be easy to style. All right, so let's see what we have. So scrolling down, this is what we have. So I think I'll remove this column. I don't need this. Okay, so I think this is it. So let's start with styling it. So the first thing we have to do I think first thing I have to do is make sure we centralize everything in the center of the page. And to do that, let's see, we have to come down to this form section. So we take form section and we come down, scroll down, form section, and we display form section as flex, and then we justify content center. I think that should be that for putting it at the center. So if we do go and check now, we should see that it's at the center now. You guys can see that. So next thing we have to do is give it a width. So we have to make it long, make it look like this. So let me zoom out a little so you guys see what I'm talking about. So zooming out, you will see that this has a width. So let me try and give this a width. So what I'm going to be using for the width is this form container. So I'm going to give this form container, and I'll give it a width. I give the width of let's say 75%, because it's not all that wide. So saving this and coming down here. Okay, so just for emphasis sake, so you guys could see what we are doing. For that, we have a 1 pixel solid. Okay, so you guys can see, I think this width is actually too much compared to what we have here. All right, so let me change this. I could use let's say 65. Let's see if that's going to be enough. Still too big. Let's try 55. Okay, 55 looks like it cuts it very well, so I'll go with 55. Then I want to actually give a little bit of padding inside this form container so that everything looks good. So I want to give the padding of say 40 pixels. Okay, so that we could actually see everything very okay. Sorry about that. So the first thing we have to do, if we go back to our design, is to make sure that we make the first name and the the label and the inputs, they display together. So can you guys see my screen? Okay, so all right. Okay, so the first thing we did is actually style the input container. So copy that to our CSS and input container and a display flex, and we say flex direction. Okay, we're going to give it color. So if we save this and we check it out on live server, so we see that everything is now displaying from, everything is now stacked on top of the other, and we could actually add this button container here. Actually add button container here, since we actually want to give it a display of flex. So all we just do is say comma, and so rather than repeating ourselves. Okay. All right. So doing that, I think the next thing we have to do now is to make sure we style the label and the inputs. So let's look at what we have to do. Yes. Okay. So let's start with the first name. Let's do that. So let's do this way. So input container, and for the label, we give it a, let's say, a font size of 16 pixels. See, Let's see what we have. Okay, that's good. And if we notice, there's a little bit of space between the label and the input element, so we could say give a margin bottom of 11 pixel. That should work. See, and let's see what we have. Okay, that's good enough. Now let's style the inputs container itself. So how do we do that? Let's this way. So input container, and what we want to get is the input container and the inputs, and also want to get the input container and the text area. Now inside this we want to give them a padding of let's see 15 pixels by let's say 20 pixels. See, normally I would have said use a height, but I prefer to use padding, so that way it's easier to style for me. So I want to inspect elements and see how the padding actually works. So top 15, let's see, I could reduce the top to 10. So instead of 15 pixels, I could leave this at 10 pixels. Let's see what we have. Okay. Okay, 10 pixels is actually looking nice. Then, okay, I think after that, the next thing we need to do okay, so I think the next thing we have, let's see the text area and the button. Let's see if this is actually looking like what we have. And okay, for now this is looking good. So let's okay, this is good for now. Okay, so at this point I'll take 3 questions. If you have any questions to ask, just ask now. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so seeing Chuku Godson.
Yeah, Chico.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. So can you hear me?
I can hear you. Sorry, you're breaking. You're breaking.
The question I want to ask is concerning. Can you hear me now? Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello, Frank, are you there?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I wasn't hearing you clearly. Chuku Godson.
Okay, sir, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sir, please, my question is, I've been, from what you've been doing, I've been seeing that you've been following this CSS
Where you are, the network
the way it was
where you are, the
given
network.
from Figma.
Okay, sorry, where you are, the network is very bad, so you have to.
Like, is that what we should do?
Okay, I'm not necessarily following the styling of Figma. What I'm actually doing is that I'm trying to show you guys how you actually structure it very well. So I'm using the Figma as the base. This is what you guys were given to do. So if I'm the one who's doing this project, this is what I will be doing. I'll be looking at Figma, how it is done on Figma, and try to replicate it to look, if not exactly the way it is on Figma, almost exactly the way it is. Okay?
Okay, so.
Yeah. All right.
Can drop your hand, Chuku Godson.
All right. Sorry about that. So let's continue. Since there are no more questions, so I'll be continuing for now. Okay. Oreofe, I can see your hand up. Do you have a question?
Okay, yes. Good evening.
Yes, good
Please,
evening.
I think the image is splashed into two
Sorry, I didn't
compared
get
to
that.
the one on Figma. The image is slashed into two compared to the one on Figma. So
Okay.
is it can we do without overflow hidden to achieve that? Because what I'm getting on my own screen is
Yes.
wrong. My form is not getting below the image.
Okay, so I think that's the reason why I use overflow hidden, because you have to make sure everything follows the flow of your web page. Now, the reason why it's not actually showing the way it's actually supposed to show on Figma is because what we use on Figma is actually a background image. I think I am noticing that now. Thank you for your question. That's why it's showing full this way. So I think I'll have to go back to CSS and resize that so it shows the way it's supposed to show, okay? So I will do that now before I continue on with the form section. Is that okay?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right. So let me correct that. So going to this section, the image section actually, I could, what I'll do is I'll take away this image tag. Take away this image tag. Yep. And close this. So from the image section, let's go up to the image section. I'm going to remove this style because it's not going to be applied anymore. Now, from here, I'm actually going to use the background image. So use background image, and let's see. Since it's in CSS, so I will say go to images and get me this image. And the next thing I will do is I'll be getting the background size, and I'll set it to cover, and I'll be setting background repeats to no repeats, and I'll be setting background position to center. Okay, so if you go back and check it now, okay, it is a little bit too big. So this is what I'll do. I'll change background repeat from cover to contain. Okay, so okay, Okay, so in that case, I will be changing the width from 50 to 40. I hope you guys can see my screen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. So, and I'll be changing the text section to 60%, so it covers for the remaining space. All right. So this is it. So I think we are done with this. All right. So let's move over to the form section. So before we continue with the form section, I think I skipped something. If you look at the form section, you find that at this part of the form, it's like there's something that looks like a shadow, a background with a shadow on it, right? So let's actually do that. I think we skipped that. So I'll be doing that from here. So I'll be doing that from the form container. So I think I'll have to increase the form container. So I'll give it a padding. With a padding of say 40 pixels. And let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's almost there. Let's say 50. Okay, all right, this is looking way better. And as you can see, the borders are rounded. So I will give this a border radius. Border radius of let's say 10 pixels. Let's see what it looks like. All right. So I think what's left now is actually this shadow under. Now to get this shadow, there are lots of resources we could use, but this shadow is usually used with the box shadow. So since you don't really know the box shadow or the particular parameters used in the box shadow, we could try to simulate it. So here's what I do. I usually use a box shadow generator. And so I usually use this to actually try to see if I could get the box shadow, and the way I do that is by playing around with this. I could set this. Let's look at Figma and see what we have. Okay, so let me just switch this a little.
Rank
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
It's present. Your screen is present.
Okay, in a minute it should be done. Okay, how about now? Still freezing?
Yes.
Present.
Okay. All right, so I think we're back. Sorry about that. All right, so when I go to this CSS box shadow generator, you could actually just play with it a little bit until you get what you're looking for. And you know, okay, so I think I will go with this. So this is the CSS code generated by the box shadow. So I could actually get this, copy this, and go to my HTML, to my CSS, and paste this there. And if I paste this there, now I can take away this border since there's no border there. If we go back, let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's there with a little border, but it's okay. So okay, so I work on it again and copy this, and this is where I put it.
The screen is frozen.
Okay, sorry about my screen freezing all the time. I don't know why. Okay, can you guys see my screen now? All right, so I think let's carry on. I think it's fixed now. Sorry about that. Okay, so after working on that for a little while, this is what we get. Okay, we could go with this. This looks more or less like what we have on Figma. And okay, so I think another thing we have to do is look at the inputs and the text area. I think they both have rounded. Sorry, I hope my screen is not freezing anymore. All right, so let's continue. So we could do this here, inputs, and we could just give them a border radius, and I think we will give this say 5 pixels, and come here and preview. And yeah, this is what we have. So what we're seeing,
It's frozen.
oh sorry about my screen freezing all the time. I don't know why. Let me work on my screen not freezing. Okay, guys, I'm coming. Let me stop sharing and share again. Okay. Okay, so guys, can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So what I did last was set the border radius for the okay. So what I did last was set the border radius for the input and the text area. I set it to 5 pixels, and this was what I got here. Now I am noticing that there is a border conflict here, so I am going to work on that. So back to the code, we could say border. I could set it to say 1 pixel solid. I'll use a different color code here, something that looks like gray little. Okay, CCC, and let's check it out and see what we have. Okay, so it's almost, yeah, it's almost done. There is a darker color, DDD. Okay, sorry, I think this is lighter. Let me use a BBB. Sorry. Okay, yeah, this is better. Okay, so after this, I'm also noticing something. So I want to give the input container the button container a margin top, give them a margin top of 15 pixels. So there could be space between them. Yeah, this is much better. Okay, so now I think we are done with this. What's left is the button, to style the button, and to do that, I have to go to the button container and grab the button container, paste, and get the button inside there. But first of all, I want to style the button container. And since it's already displayed flex, I want to justify contents. I'll justify the contents to the end, because if we look at what we have here, the content is at the end, and that's what I want to do. Justify contents end to actually place that at the end. And for the button itself, I want to give it a width. So give it a width of 200 pixels, and I want to also display it flex. Sorry, not display flex. Text align. Text align center. Okay, so and let's see what we have. Okay, it is not actually just specifying to the end, but I'll come back to that. The next thing I'm supposed to do is add a padding, and I'll give a padding of say 15 pixels, and I'll give the background color of teal. That looks like teal, and I'll give a border, I think border. I'm going to use border as onset. Now this onset property is actually used to nullify any CSS command you want to do. So using onset means I'm removing the border, and I think I'm going to make it a bit, okay, this is not teal, that looks like blue. So going back, I will change this to blue. Okay, not just blue, let's say let's look for light blue or light sky blue. Let's see if we could try getting the color. Now, so we could actually go with blue, but I think we have to make it a little bit lighter. So I could do this with VS Code, and let's save and see what we have. Okay, that's a little bit too much. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sir, please, we're just seeing only the code page. We're not seeing where the output page.
Okay, you're only seeing the code page.
As in VS Code, they only see VS Code.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, let me. Can you see it now? All right, sorry guys. I think I need to share my screen again. Can you guys see my output now? This is it. Can you see it now?
No, sir.
Uh, okay, I think that problem should be solved now. You can see it now, right?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so before you guys lost me, I was trying to get the background color. I'm trying to see if I could make it match with what I have here, but so far so good. I haven't been doing a very good job of that, but I will just go with the color I have here for now. Now, the next thing I have to do is set a border radius. So set a border radius of let's say 5 pixels, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, I think what's just left is to set the font size. All right, I think I need to reduce the padding a little and set the font size. font size of let's say 16 pixels. Okay. All right, that looks good. And then I set the color. I set the color to white and I save and check. Okay, so what's left now is to move the button to the far end, and to do that I will use margin. I could just say margin. I could say 0 auto, and oh sorry, that moves it to margin left actually. Oh sorry. Let's see, margin right auto. Okay, let me not use margin. Margin is trying to give me some issues. All right, so I'll use flex end. Okay, guys, sorry about the button not being able to move. Give me a few minutes to do that. All right, let's see. I didn't left. Sorry, auto, and save this. All right, so this has worked, and okay, I think that's that. So I think comparing this with this, I think we oh, we forgot one very important thing. I forgot to put a heading to the contact form. I just saw that now. So this heading contact us. I think I forgot that. Sorry, human nature. To actually do that, I have to do that here. So I'm going to say H3, and I'll call this contact form. Platform. And let's see what we have. Okay, so it's from container.
It's frozen.
Sorry, is it freezing again?
Yes.
Okay, so all right, sorry about that. So where you guys lost me was where I was trying to fix this contact form to make the font size a little bit more like what we have on Figma here. So I'm going to increase the font size from CSS. So font size, I could give it let's say 30 pixels. Okay, a little bit more. I could make it 50. Okay. Oh, sorry, it's not contact form. Contact us. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so let me make this 40. And okay, this looks a lot better. So I could change the font weight to normal. Let's see what it looks like. Yep. Yes, almost like this. So with that, I think we are done with this particular assignment. So I don't know, does anyone have any questions to ask? Now would be the perfect time to ask a question. So I think I'll take a couple of questions before I hand over to the host. Okay, Chuku Godson.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Please, I noticed that from the Figma prototype, I saw that the background, the total background of the web page is different from the background of the form.
Yes, yeah, that's true. The total background of the web page is actually kind of different. It's a shade of white. So you could actually do that. That's actually a design. So I think I skipped that. So apart from that, any other questions? Let's just say I could give this DDD. Sorry, EEE. Okay, I think that should be settled. Yep, that's settled.
Yeah, Mfon, you can ask your question.
Thank you. The question is not pertaining the code, it's pertaining my hosting of my page on GitHub.
Okay.
It's showing error, 4 error. Like I've clicked on the normal process, going to the settings, hosting, try to create the link for the page. But when I open it in the browser, it's showing 4 error. So I don't know.
Okay. Did you use, what did you name your index.html page with?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What did you name your index? What did you name your HTML page with? Sorry.
I don't understand.
The project you hosted on GitHub that's showing 4.4. Your HTML page, what's the name you used?
Index.html.
And it's not showing. Okay, I think it is supposed to actually show, because the naming convention is that you actually have to put index.html there before you actually do that. So, okay, in that case, I think I'll actually cover that a little. So maybe I'll just create a repo here and do that now. Okay, so does anyone have any other questions? So let me just do this now. So let's see, github.com. Okay, so this is my repo, and I'm going to create a new repo, and I'll call this KodeCamp. Okay, so Adewale, I am seeing your hand up. What's your question? Adewale.
Still concerning this, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay. I can't hear you for now, so let me just continue. So creating a GitHub repo, I will add a, okay, I'll skip the README file for now, and I'll tell you why. KodeCamp, and I will create the repository. Okay, so I have finished creating my repository now. Now to actually push my project to Git, the first thing I will do is to open my file. Okay, this is the project. So I would right click. For those who are using Windows, you could right click and Git bash here. But since I am using Linux, I would open in terminal. So terminal is open. I can close this and I'll scooch this here. Okay, so the first thing,
Your screen
is it glitching again?
it's frozen.
Okay, it's frozen. Okay, so can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the first thing I do is I initialize Git in my repository, which is Git init. And then after doing that, I add, which is a Git add. Now adding all the files in my local repository, and I am making a commit message using Git commit. And so I'll say, I'll call this, I'll just say correction to KodeCamp challenge. And oh, sorry, Git is not configured here. It's not configured here, so I will do that. Sorry, Git config. User email. My email. Okay, and my name. So my name. So I'll use Frank. All right. So sorry about that. So continuing with that. I continue my commits. I have committed. So after committing to my local repository, I have to add my online repository, and to do that, I will use git remote add origin, and I'm going to copy this link. This is the link to my repository online, and I'm going to paste this here. Okay. Now I'm going to actually push online. So git push. Origin master. After putting my password, okay, so I need to authenticate for Git. So opening this link. Copying this link. sorry. Okay. Okay, sorry about this. I think I'm having an error here saying please use a personal access token instead. So let me do this on VS Code instead so I can get a personal access token. So let me make a little change and save. I'm supposed to push. Okay. Okay. All right. So I have okay, guys, I'm sorry about that. I had to use VS Code to actually push because I was having authentication issues, which was the reason why I was getting this error. So what we use now is actually token, like the error message said. So that's why I had to use Git to push. On Windows, you might not necessarily get this error because from Git, you can actually push directly. Okay.
Your screen is frozen. Okay, so
Okay. Thinking it's okay now. So
yeah, it's okay now.
okay. So if I go back to Git and I go to this KodeCamp GitHub page and I refresh you should see the project here. All right. So I go to settings and I scroll down to Git pages. I close this tab. So okay. So saying Git page is currently disabled. So I choose the branch I just created, which is the master branch, and I go to the docs and I save. Okay, sorry, that's a mistake. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's already telling me site not found, so I think that was supposed to be root, and I save, and then we come here, fresh. Okay, so I'm thinking this is the error you always get.
I think for that, I actually leave my page for like 5 minutes and refresh it later, so it's going to work.
Okay. Okay. Let's hold on for like a few minutes and let's try it again. Okay, so Okay, let's move this back to docs and let's save and hold on for a few minutes. Sorry, Infon, you raised your hand.
Yeah, yes. What someone just said now, that he waited for like 5 minutes or so. So I think that's what happened with me. Because I did it for like about, I think 30 minutes ago. So I just left it. As we're talking now, I just say, let me check. As someone said something about leaving for 5 minutes. So I had to go and check again. I had to go and check again, and I
it's
saw
up, Abi?
Yes, it's up.
Okay.
So it should be an issue from GitHub.
Yes, it usually takes some time to actually, no, it usually takes some time to actually upload the whole site to Git. So let's wait for a few minutes. So while we're waiting, in case you also have any questions based on this project, you could also raise your hand and ask them. Okay, Chuku Godson, your hand is raised.
Please, I wanted to just ask if I could share my screen so that you could assess what I did.
Okay,
though it's not
we'll do
the way
that.
we just did now.
Okay, you could send me a DM on Slack so I could also show you how to do that. Yeah, not now.
Okay, so
yeah. Okay, so while we're waiting for whoever has a question, let's hold on and check again. So it's still not up yet. So let's hold on. Does anyone have any other question to ask? Okay, so Gochuku, your hand is raised.
Good day, everyone. So mine is not really a question, Chair. So I just while we're waiting, so there's this when you're using Figma, actually it's just a contribution, Chair. So when you're using Figma, as much as possible, I've had instances. Can we hear me?
yes, sir.
So can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So there are instances where a designer can get really pissed at you for not using the colors or the fonts or what the person designed. So as much as possible, you try and ensure that the colors that you're using is matches with what you're implementing. So what is on Figma and what is on your web page, they should try and match. Don't make assumptions. So let's just have that at the back of our mind. So I guess
Thank you,
that's
sir.
my contribution. Yeah.
Okay, so Gochuku, thank you for that. So that's also a very nice one, but I couldn't get those styles, so that's why I wasn't being style specific there. So let me try this again.
Sorry, let me come in again. Okay, so when you want to use that on Figma, I think if you go to there's an inspect or something of that sort on Figma. Yeah. So when you can actually get those styles on that what will I call it, on that part of Figma. You would see it. There's inspect, there's design. So you go to the inspect part on the right hand side.
All right, thank you very much for that. Okay, so any more questions? That'll be the right time to ask your questions if you have any. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I think I have to hand over to the host now. Let's try this one more time. Okay, so no more questions for now. Okay, since there are no more questions, I think I'll hand over to the CodeCamp admin. I think for now the GitHub pages link is not yet up, so I am going to have to wait for a while, but we can't wait for it to come up before we actually finish the class. So I think for that, that's actually how we push Git and host on Git pages. I think because of network or some other hindrances, it's not coming up now. So boy, this is exactly how you actually do it. So just in case. Okay, so I'll be handing over to the admin now. Okay, now I am seeing some people raising up their hands. Do you have?
So,
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, please, I wanted to still, based on what you said earlier, you said you were going to help us send the link of the code that you've posted on GitHub, and also I can communicate with you on Slack. So can I get your Slack handle and also
Yes,
the GitHub?
at Franklin. That's my Slack handle, and I'll be posting the link to this URL on the stage 1 channel in Slack. So
Okay, so
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody. So I think we'll be rounding up the class here, sure. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your participation and all of that.
Okay, yeah. So thank you, everyone.